York's classic rock, Q1043.
It is our pleasure to welcome to the studio this morning the awesome Mark Henry, who was, in fact, the world's strongest man.
Yes.
I mean, think about that. I mean, that's a fact. That's not some, strange title that was bestowed upon somebody at some sort of bogus event. We're talking about reality. We're talking about an Olympian here. As a matter of fact, Mr. Henry, Mark Henry.
Yes.
It was the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona. That's where most people became acquainted with you.
Yeah, I think so. I was kind of like a teen phenom, too. So people found out that I could lift heavy things, and the Olympic Committee got wind of it. And they challenged me, really, to change from powerlifting to Olympic lifting. So I made the transition. 10 months later, I was on the Olympic team.
So what's the difference between the two types of lifting that you just mentioned?
Well, it's three sports. Powerlifting was my first sport. It's the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. And then the Olympic lifting is the snatch and the clean and jerk. Those are the two.
This means nothing to
overhead
Jim.
lifts. Well, he's going to know because he's going to Google it when he goes on.
Right,
Okay.
and I want our friends who are listening to
Okay.
understand
Right, and the people
exactly.
listening, some of them might know. And then strongman is just challenging yourself to lift in different apparatus, the farmer's walk, the Atlas stones. People see the big rocks, lifting them over bars, throwing weight for height, seeing how far you could carry different implements. It's so many things we wouldn't be able to get through it today.
Well, what was it like for you when you were selected for the U.S. Olympic team? I mean, that's a big deal.
It is because I nobody expected this little 18-year-old kid to come in and win the Olympic trials. There were guys that had lifted for 10, 15 years before me, and all of a sudden, you have this kid that just did the sport 10 months come and win. And I just relished at the point, came in 10th place, and was the heaviest and the youngest American to ever compete in the Olympic Games, and the heaviest at the time to ever compete in the Olympic Games.
How did you get into lifting? How did you figure out that this was something you were so good at?
I saw the Olympics when I was a little bitty kid, and all my childhood photos are me flexing, me posing like the Hulk, like I was strong. Anything that had to do with strength from 7 years old to 12 years old, when my mother finally bought me some weights, that's what all my pictures were.
Huh.
Yeah, I just knew it. I just felt I was strong.
Well, from a deadlift, you have lifted
903 is still the world record.
Wow.
903
It's the only one I hold now. These guys they're starting to catch all my records. The deadlift is all I got left.
Well,
But you have
You have it.
903 pounds.
Yeah, I've squatted 1,000, but there's about 20 guys in history that have squatted 1,000 pounds. So that's commonplace. But there's only one guy that drug-free won the world championship and set a world record, and it still stands 30 years later.
And then at the Pan American Games, that was, 3 years after you were in the Olympics?
Yeah.
At the Pan American Games, you did the trifecta. You captured a gold, a silver, and a bronze.
I did. And like one of my better international competitions, had a great time. And the fact coming in second was really, really good because, in America, we actually took drug tests. So, everybody I was competing against, they were filthy. And now they have all these documentaries that have come out and show how they did it, and they use the KGB to help them, like all kind of craziness. So, yeah, I feel like I won anyway.
And then you also moved on into wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I got noticed for being a wrestling fan. So I would compete in these celebrity slam dunk contests, and I would, flex and act like I was Hulk Hogan, and it got the attention of the WWF at the time, and I came in. They reached out to me. I joined them, and I never looked back. 27-year career, won world championships, and traveled the world. Been to every major city in the world. Been to the White House multiple times. Been to the Kremlin. Been to Parliament. There's a lot of people can say they never did that.
Mark Henry is with us here at Q104.3. You talked about how you were a wrestling fan, and then what was at the time the WWF, until the World Wildlife Federation sued them, and they had to change their name to the WWE. That they recruited you to be a part of their stable of stars. Now, when you first showed up for work and the rest of the guys had a chance to meet you, you're an imposing figure. I mean, I've met a lot of professional wrestlers, but you are like a super imposing figure. Did they freak out at all?
No, a lot of those guys were jealous of me because I had a guaranteed contract. I was the first guy to come in and negotiate a guaranteed deal, and over 10 years. And because I was already a household name at the time, I got paid a significant amount of money, and that didn't go over very well. So I got hazed a lot, and there were guys that didn't want to teach me, didn't want to work with me.
Who would dare haze you?
You
Shelley,
know what?
who would haze him?
I don't know. And how did they haze you?
People. And they found out very quickly that I was not the guy to play pranks on and do all that, because I would fight first and then we'd talk about it later.
So that was not a pleasant experience,
It
the
wasn't.
initiation.
My first 2 years was miserable. And I had a lot of success, but it was because the bosses wanted it. And people had to acquiesce to the fact that the boss wanted this done. But it wasn't, they didn't make it easy.
When did they start accepting you?
Probably about the 4th year. I got banished to Canada for fighting, and it was like the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got banished to the Hart family, which is one of the more famous. It's like the Mannings in football. Stu Hart, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, who became like a brother to me, they taught me the business of pro wrestling, and they made me learn the history and not just be a fan. I was a fan, but then I became a student of it. And once I became a student of wrestling, and I started reading books about the history of wrestling and people like Lou Thez, like I just fell in love with it even more.
Well, when I was a kid, where I grew up, we had Dick the Bruiser.
Loved Dick the Bruiser.
Was one of our favorites in the Motor City.
Yeah, the Motor City Bad Boy. I used to love Dick the Bruiser. From watching film of Dick the Bruiser, he's one of the guys that you can credit the pro wrestling world with antagonizing the crowd, because he didn't just beat the wrestler. He wanted you to see him beat people, and he would drag wrestlers to the outside and hang their face over the barricade and let people get up close and personal, and he'd smack people around and put them back in the ring and ask the crowd if they wanted to be next. And that influenced me a lot. Mentioning Dick the Bruiser brought back a lot of memories.
Well, he was a great showman.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, putting, real entertainment. Professional wrestling was among the very first successes on television when television was introduced in the late 1940s, early 1950s. Wrestling was on almost every night. I mean, there were wrestling matches from places in Queens, here in New York, and they were on all over the country, and because they had so much time to fill with live events.
There was wrestling before Broadway.
Oh, sure. But I mean, with television, it's still a big deal on television, but it was a real big part of the growth of television when it first was invented.
Yes, it was. And what I was saying about Broadway is the term for a 1-hour match is called a Broadway. And big motions, big pantomimes, the show, being showman is the word you use. Like that's what we started. We like everything. Every third commercial you see on TV is something to do with wrestling, and wrestling has evolved into movies and television. Like we are the interesting thing in entertainment.
Now tell us about the AEW.
You know, I left WWE and wanted to keep furthering where I was going in wrestling, like be on the executive side. And AEW is Tony Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as AEW, said that he would love to have me if I was available, and I became available because, you know, the WWE was not hiring me as an executive on that side. So I had to go where I can learn that side. And I've enjoyed helping and mentoring and teaching psychology. Like all of those things have, you know, been the biggest part of why I left and AEW succeeding. We've been number one on cable for 5 weeks in a row.
Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, AEW analyst, coach, scout, and mentor. There is a big event coming up. It's AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. That'll be live on TBS.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is our second time at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Last time we had 21,000 people, and hopefully this time we'll go over 21,000. I'm sure that they'll open up more seating, and we've given you 2 tickets to give away.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to work out.
That's great that you brought some tickets. Let's give them away right now to caller 25 at 888-872-1043. Now, remember, these tickets are for these are today. It opens
hours
today,
away.
Just
right?
hours away. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully, if the people get a chance to meet us, that would be even better. Our security is really, really good about letting us be interactive. So hopefully they'll be able to get a way to get to the back and meet everybody.
Well, this is a big wrestling event. So what special activity?
Man, you just made me take a deep sigh, man. Like the best thing about AEW wrestling is the interactions with the crowd. Like, it's a party. I mean, any show that I've ever been to, you always find a section that they're just uber over the top in love with AEW wrestling. The signs, pictures of wrestlers' heads in the crowd. I mean, it's really, really incredible. And being in New York City, you know, it's the front yard of the best wrestling company in history. And to be able to come in and pull the numbers that we are is proof and evidence that we're doing the right thing.
And, of course, you can catch the AEW on TBS.
On TBS, Rampage and Dynamite. Dynamite is on Wednesday nights at 7. Rampage is at 8 o'clock on Fridays. We look forward to having as many people tune in. Both shows are explosive, and I'm hoping that the people that listen to this show that have not heard of Dynamite and Rampage tune in.
Well, Mark Henry, I'm sure that your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, that steel-driving man, has to be so proud of you.
Oh my goodness!
Keeping the
It's not my first time hearing that.
Keeping the Henry family name out there as a representation of strength and skill and perseverance. You know, that's what that Henry family name has been known for a long, long time.
I try my best to not carry a hammer around with me because, you know, it'll go off in my check luggage.
Mark Henry, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having us. I mean, AEW appreciates every minute that we get of press, and this has been does wonders for us.
Well, we always enjoy it. It was a year ago today, actually, when we
Wow.
spoke with you last via Zoom, and it's nice to have you in the studio in person.
Man, it's a pleasure, man. Y'all awesome.
Enjoy the event.
Yes.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.